Brendan Schaub was talking about the upcoming match between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. And Brendan said, I'm not convinced that if Pereira gets the jump on Strickland, that guarantees he's going to be fighting Adesanya for the title. Now, to tell you guys what Brendan's talking about, to put Alex Pereira, who's kind of a man of mystery, everybody knows and has heard what a great kickboxer he is. I guarantee none of you have ever seen him kickbox. And for the one of you that's raising your hand because you're a nerd that was on, I'm not saying you can't find it, but my point is fair. We don't know a lot about him. Just all the things that we hear about him is really good. And he's associated and tied to the champion Israel Adesanya, and they did that through kickboxing, of which Pereira won. Now, that just makes it interesting. It just does. Daniel Cormier had a big fight one time. He was fighting Pat Cummins, and it was Pat's debut in the UFC, but they had shared a workout room together. All sorts of witnesses at the Olympic Training Center. And Pat's version, which he was happy to tell the world, is I frustrated Daniel Cormier so bad I made him cry and he left the workout. That put them into a co-main event. Pat Cummins went on Fox and told that story and had never even been in the UFC before. It was compelling. There's something about that works, and that was a training room story. So don't make believe that even if we never saw and we don't even know how to find a kickboxing match between Pereira and Adesanya, but as long as Pereira won, oh, and by the way, he did it by knockout, there's something there. We can agree. I want to go back to Brendan's point, because many people do. Look, Sean Strickland, how do you get there? Sean Strickland's a main event guy. Sean Strickland was drawing straws to possibly be the number one contender to fight Adesanya. He ended up losing it to Jared Cannonier. I mean, just by example, how do you get to Sean Strickland? And if you do get to Sean Strickland, you got to be getting pretty close to the top. So we just all knew, with the story, being armed with the story that I just laid out for you, in addition to the very tough opponent Sean Strickland, must be trying to fast track this guy. What does Sean Strickland, who's won 7 in a row and has done multiple main events, get by fighting a mysterious, decent record former kickboxer? Right? I mean, it's one of those things. Okay. I think Brendan makes a fair point, because what do you need to get a title shot? Right? You need some name recognition. You need a background story. And in this case, right now, I think they're also looking for parity. Adesanya is starting to do what Dana White calls lapping the division, meaning he's not only beating guys, he's beating them for the second time. Robert Whittaker is the number one ranked guy in the division, but he can't get the shot. Whittaker and Colby Covington are in the exact same position, which is they are ranked number one. They are the true number one contender, but they don't get a fight for the title. So you start grabbing from other guys. But as soon as we start doing that, we are now admitting to everybody, including the viewer, that the most difficult opponent isn't who the champion is going to face. That's a tough sell. It's just hard, right? Okay. So I do think that Pierre is being moved in that direction, but I do agree with Brendan. It's not a guarantee. There's other guys that get to speak up and say certain things, but I listen when they do speak up. I'll give you an example. Paulo Costa just works. Paulo Costa is interesting, and you may think that he's being crazy. You may think he's being disrespectful. You might think he's being funny and he's being nice. Whatever you think, but you do listen, and so do I. He looks a certain way. People call him the Terminator, but he looks like it. Everything that he does is compelling, but I just heard from Paulo Costa yesterday. He was saying the fight that he's being offered is Luke Rockhold, and he said that doesn't make any sense. Luke's ranked number 13. Now, I can't confirm that on the foggiest idea what Luke is ranked, but Paulo's point was, why would I fight a guy that low ranked when I'm trying to get to a championship? Now, I see it very different. I don't care what Luke Rockhold is ranked. Luke is in a different category where the rules are different. He's a former world champion who's likely going into the Hall of Fame. If you can get on the docket with him at any time, it's a real luxury. There's not very many former world champions. You beat a former world champion, it means something. But you don't have the opportunity very many times because there's not very many former world champions floating around. So I see it very differently than Paulo, but I'm still attempting to prove the point that if Paulo's turning those fights down, or Paulo's got a beautiful ranking and Luke doesn't have the opportunity to come in and take that ranking away. Now, we just moved 2 meaningful guys out of the equation, which does come back to giving a good look at Pereira and or Sean Strickland. So where does that division go? I do think that we need to hear a little bit from Adesanya, who is a master of controlling his career. Nobody does it right now better than him. I'm not sure anybody has ever done it in the history of the sport better, so you've got to get his attention. Pereira has his attention, make no mistake. Why I'm attempting to downplay this kickboxing match that allegedly happened, well, I'm trying to say, nobody saw that. That's another sport. Well, I'm trying to do that. That's not what's inside of Adesanya's heart. That was a competition, and he wanted to win it, and he didn't. And he wants to get it back. And that I can relate to. I go all the way back to 9 years old when I started competing. I know everybody that ever whipped my ass. Believe me. And there wasn't always a lot of witnesses. And it always wasn't with all the big lights on. I know it happened. And they're still paying from it, and I would still like to get it back. I think you guys can relate. So it is interesting. Now, does just a win, this is Brendan's point, does just Pereira getting a win over Sean Strickland guarantee him that? I don't know. But there would be no way to know. How does that fight look? How does he beat Sean? How impressive is it? If you can even edge Sean Strickland, I don't care if it's a split decision. If you get the jump on Sean Strickland, who's beaten up 7 men in a row, 3 of them in main events, it's going to matter. And if you get the blessing of Adesanya, who shows a propensity to control his own career, it's certainly possible.